Let's begin with a comment from Brian's, who certainly doesn't appear to have anything in the way of brains. That background isn't real. The candles aren't flickering. It's fake. Welcome to the broadcast, everybody, and greetings from my salon. I just wanted to sort of show off the lengths of this gown that you have seen before, but it is a long, full-length sort of gown, and I wanted to show off some of the shimmers and sparkles for you before we begin. I thought some of you might appreciate that before I get adjusted here. You can see a little bit more of the background. We're going to have some royal business, and we're going to have a lot of chin wagging, but first of all, we must discuss Catherine, because she was a sensation during this emotional reunion with genocide survivors at the Guildhall in London. This was last night, where she joined the Prince of Wales and was wearing a string of pearls. Gorgeous, aren't they? 5 strands, actually. As future consort of King William V. So I thought that was rather appropriate with the 5 strands. A vintage piece, this one is, by the Jewish brand Susan Kaplan. And the pearl bracelet adorning her wrist once belonged to her late mother-in-law, Diana, Princess of Wales of her era. And the coat that Catherine's wearing is by Catherine Walker. Prince William was handsome in navy, and they lit candles, and the service was televised on the BBC, and William gave a reading, which was superb, and they were greeting Holocaust survivors that Catherine knows very well, actually. The princess said, it's like seeing an old friend, it really is, and you can see the delight that she creates in all of these wonderful upstanding people and survivors of atrocities. Actually, Robert Berkowitz told her, William is the luckiest man in the world. Well, that's true, but she didn't do too bad either, did she, our Catherine? She didn't do too bad, no. They were a wonderful scene, and at Windsor Castle, the Prince of Wales hosted a visit from Jordan's Crown Prince, the son of King Abdullah II and of Queen Rania. And Prince Hussein shared images from the tete-a-tete on his socials. He said, with my dear friend, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, at Windsor Castle today. Well, it looks almost as cosy as my salon, doesn't it, my dears? Almost as splendid, but not quite. Not quite. Oh, okay, the chandelier might be a little grander than my paper lantern above me. I'm not going to show you, but I've got a paper lantern, you know, one of those round ones that looks like a hornet's nest or a wasp's nest. That's what I've got above me from the previous occupant who was renting this place. It's one of my pet hates. My apologies to you if you've got one. Most people have them at some point, and when I was renting I had them many, many times. I get it. It's just a pet hate of mine, paper lanterns. The one thing I will say about them is the fact that they hide the bulbs entirely. They completely surround the bulbs, which I love. I'm not a fan of naked bulbs. These days, with the old incandescent bulbs, they could look pretty. But now, bulbs are the ugliest things in Christendom, aren't they? Together with trickle vents, which we discussed the other day. That's the other reason I don't like them. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Especially on old windows, being imposed upon them. I digress. Well, actually, I'm going to be digressing for quite some time. We're going to have a little chin wag about my furnishings and goings on now. If you don't care for this sort of preamble, I will furnish the description box with the timestamps. You can skip ahead to royal business. But I do get the feeling that most of you like me to hold forth and simply chat to you. That's what this channel is for. And if you don't have the patience for that, then go off, do your ticking and talking, and don't darken my doorstep again, my dear. This is for us to relax and get cosy. For those who have asked about the colour of the walls that I painted blue, originally when I moved in here, they were a standard sort of typical off-white that you find in London. Well, white, I suppose, really. Not brilliant white, but sort of off-white, which I actually did enjoy, as boring as it sounds. I like those London whites. But I wanted to bring a different flavour in here, and this one is working out really well. You were right, those of you who said that I should sit with it for a while, give it time. I always liked the blue, but I thought it might make the room gloomy. It's not, it's wonderful. Blue is the warmest colour. And the blue that I used, which I'm not recommending because it's different in every place, in every situation, and with the changes of the light, but it's the The colour is called Blue Bay, and I happened to be wearing a blue mohair jumper when I purchased it from the shop down the road, and I think the guy thought that I was saying blue gay, and we had a bit of a giggle. But it's Blue Bay by Crown. Crown tray is covered in paint, as you can see, my dear, from my little DIY job. Crown Trade Matte Vinyl Emulsion. Yes, that's what it is, my dear, for those of you who are curious. The walls of my salon. And as you know, I'm particularly inspired by Barbara Carlton's home, Camfield Place. The blues, the turquoise, the corals, the pinks. The way that she uses blue as a neutral fascinates me. I will refer to it time and time again, my dears, because it is an obsession of mine, Camfield Place. And the way that the walls and the rooms are painted, she has this fabulous way. I mean, she was colour drenching before it became in vogue, you know, as it is now. She was colour drenching everything, but she wasn't afraid to sort of put clashy blues together, all kinds of blues, shades that you would never put with each other. And she used blue as a sort of neutral, and that's what I want to do and trying to do, to think of it as a neutral which elevates certain shades. It's particularly shades that have red in them, the pinks, the magentas, the crimsons, the burgundies, through to light pinks and oranges. It sort of elevates them and gives them a completely new feeling. It's wonderful. Many of you have complimented, you've seen that lamp a million times, my dear, before in the past. It's not actually red. It does come across red on the camera. It's actually a bright pink, which is nice. It's a little bit small for this room, actually, as a standing lamp, so it's kind of there temporarily while I'm keeping my eye out for other lamps, probably pink in colour, that would suit the room. But that's for later. But yeah, in Camfield Place, and if you Google the images of it, there's a wonderful video on YouTube of Camfield Place, but the way that the walls were painted, some of them had a sort of glossy feel, and it looked like everything was sort of draped in icing. You know, sort of palest blue, sticky bun, fondant fancy, icing sugar with creams and whites and then clashy blues. Now, when I was sampling the paints for this room, and I sampled about 6 different colours. One of them was a shade called Chance, which was greener. It was more of a Tiffany blue. And I've actually used it on the dresser that you can see there. The dresser, that is a shade called Chance, which in the flesh, actually it doesn't look that different on camera, but in the flesh it clashes a bit more, but I wanted to experiment with it. I'm not actually keen on that dresser. It's the one that I always used in the old place, but it was black and gold. I'd found it at a junk shop, painted it black and gold, and was using that. And I want to get rid of it, but I just thought I'd play with it. You know what I mean, my dear, to see what it's like when you sort of colour drench. So I painted it in this shade of Chance, just for a bit of fun, and I expect I'll keep it there for a while for that icing sugar effect. But it looks particularly good with pinks, and actually the interplay of the blues and the pinks, it brings to mind so many different things. I love the way that it looks with pink book spines, the spines of books, and I don't have many in bright pink. I'm going to have to stock up on some, but I'll try and arrange a little vignette to show you what I mean. It also puts me in mind of a YouTuber friend of mine who I've known for years, Sparkle by Monica. She has a channel for all of you who enjoy beading and crafting and that kind of thing. She's been a great friend of the channel for many years. Monica Dockery, based in the States. I'd advise you, if you're looking for birthday gifts, little trinkets, little charms, she puts them together so beautifully, and she puts them together with great love. She puts together so many things. She has a wonderful shop online, Sparkle by Monica. I'll put links in the description box, but I would love to send some custom her way because she really deserves it. But actually, that dresser, when I moved here, I happened to look at it upside down, and there was a sticker on there with a sort of Scandinavian name. And I Googled it and discovered that the dresser was originally IKEA. I mean, I never particularly liked that dresser. I don't think it's a thing of great beauty, but I just found it cheap going for junk and repainted it and had fun sort of refashioning it. But I didn't think it was IKEA. I thought it was something a little bit more original than that, but it's a very famous known IKEA make. So I'm just having a little bit of fun with it for a while. Some of you have suggested spotlights and overhead lighting to show off the paintings. They can look nice. I don't like overhead lighting, electric lighting at all, so that won't be for me, I'm afraid, but I do appreciate the suggestions. I like lamps everywhere, and candles. By the way, a few people have asked me if I've got plywood running along the underside here of the fireplace. It's not plywood, it looks like that. There's a lamp in there at the moment, just illuminating one of my sort of Tiffany style lamps, not the real thing, placed in there. It's illuminated, but that's concrete. You can see it's all concrete in the fireplace. It's actually not bad looking concrete, but that's what's there. And then this side, there's a little bit of coloured card that someone shoved in there to keep whatever's blocking the chimney in place and free from drafts. Parts of this home are being revealed to me as we go along. I found a secret cupboard the other day, and it really gave me the creeps when I looked inside, full of cobwebs and spiders and I don't know what. It's so dark in there. Although I did find the old original staircase in there, presumably from over 100 years ago, in a sort of rich mahogany sort of wood in there, which doesn't appear anywhere else in the building. So that was quite interesting. Can we please say hello to the first Basketeer in America to receive one of my keepsakes? Gladys from Gettysburg in Pennsylvania was actually the very first Foot who emailed in a request. She was first over the line and she was first in the United States to receive the keepsake. So now I know that it can take precisely 7 days to reach those of you in the States. So hopefully those of you who I've notified that it's gone out to will be receiving it soon. Please email us and let us know as soon as you receive them, so I know that they're getting out. The rest of you who have paid but have not received a notification that they're going out will do so soon, I promise, but I've got to get ducks in a row before I send them all out. You will be notified when they go out. Don't worry, they will arrive. I'll make sure they get to you by fair means or foul. Just have patience. Patience is a virtue, my dears. But yes, Gladys, thank you very much, my dear. I've still got actually a great Aunt Glad. Oh dear, I'm killing her off before she's gone. Who I love to bits, actually. She's not in the best of health, but she's not the auntie I told you about, but she's another great Aunt Glad. I've got a Gladys. It's a very old-fashioned name that's been out of fashion for so long, but when you think of it, it's a beautifully, timelessly modern name, actually. I wouldn't mind it for a daughter, Gladys. It's actually a really beautiful name. Rather like I was saying, I rather like the name Daphne and some of these less favoured names in the modern era, but I like it. Gladys, and she showed off the wares that were sent to her in the keepsake, displayed on a veil of crimson. And actually, you got one of the rare autograph signed in blue pen, my dear. I was in a real quandary, black or blue, black or blue. I actually ended up plumping for black, but seeing yours, I rather enjoyed the blue as well. I did look online to see what the late Elizabeth used to use. And she used blue and black, so you can't really go wrong, can you? With salvation everlasting, he shall save us. He shall bless with the largesse of Messiah, everlasting righteousness. Yes, I document all the souvenir keepsakes that go out by photograph before I post them. You can see it there next to my rug. By the way, for those of you that got confused, the rugs that I showed you in the previous video, they're my own rugs that I brought with me. They're not the carpet here that I told you about that's rather old and good for treading all over. That's the oatmeal beigey carpet. That's the one that was always here. But now let's turn to the tapestry of this sofa, because it's quite enchanting and it's received a lot of compliments and a lot of questions, and I wanted to show it off to you in its full glory. Comment rather, from Nicola Howe Davies, a kind message complimenting the tapestry, said, "Hi River, I love your Aubusson Tapestry settee. If you need any help with the coving and the ceiling rows, we may be able to point you in the right direction. We work in the film industry and know a great company who do the plaster work for films, and we recently used 3 for our home." Aren't people kind? Particularly my fruit basketeers, but aren't people so kind? This is one of 6 million comments that I get from people offering their help, their advice, their insight, their knowledge. Boosts one's spirit and gives one some faith in humanity, doesn't it, my dear? Generosity of spirit. Thank you very much, Nicola Howe Davies. Well, oh, and Jenny Tolios also said, "I'm already loving the new surrounds. Is that a cherub stitched into your sofa? It's simply beautiful indeed." And actually it's 4 cherubs. It's 4 cherubs, and it took me a while to notice the 4th. that 4 of them, or cherubim perhaps, or to cherubim, I think they're winged creatures, aren't they? But anyway, glorious word, isn't it? Cherub. Cherub, it was one of Mummy's pet names for me, actually, when I was a little thing. My cherub, my treasure chest, she used to say. Cherubs, the thing is, they often give me the creeps, I'll be honest with you. Cherubs aren't always the most delightful things to look at in art. You know, once they were all the rage, and they're interwoven into so many objets d'art, from gilt mirrors to paintings and all the rest of it. But some of them do give me the creeps idea, their expressions. In actual fact, I think a lot of them would get cancelled now. I don't think they'd cut it with all the japes that they get up to. They're naked japes. But I'll throw up some imagery of this sofa. As I told you, the seat is not especially comfortable because it's so old. It hasn't been done for a long time. At some point it was resprung and it was covered in a pale gold velvet, which is in bad condition actually, but it is very knobbly underneath. So, and I'm rather nervous using this chair, this sofa. It's fairly sturdy and heavy, but sometimes I do feel that it might snap if I move too much. So I can't do too much bouncing up and down on it. I expect I will once I get used to it, my dear. But it is taking well-loved to the extreme, because it is kind of falling apart at the seams here and there. So why did I buy it? Why did I buy it, my dear? Well, quite simply, the tapestry, which is partly the original Aubusson Tapestry. Sorry if I'm not saying that right. Aubusson, I'm not an expert on any of this, but Aubusson Tapestry upholstery to the backrest, which was made by hand in the late 1800s. There have been many repairs that you can observe on this, which is nice because it means that it's been loved and looked after, and there's been attempts to preserve it. And it is comfy to perch on, actually. I'm enjoying broadcasting to you from it, but not to lounge on. It's not one for lounging. But it is a joy to behold this tapestry. It truly is a joy to behold and to contemplate as you're sitting in other armchairs. Just to look at it as a work of art is really lovely, especially in the evening under candlelight. It shimmers. And I'm thinking of getting some velvet drapes to protect the tapestry so that I'm not always leaning on it, because there are holes forming and tears and rips, and you know, it is coming apart in some ways, but it'll hold up if I'm not too rough with it, you know. Utterly charming. And I'm absolutely beguiled by the tones of shimmering gold, pinks and silvers. And as you know, my dear, I'm forming my salon, I'm assembling my salon, but so it might seem like, oh, I'm ordering sofas here, armchairs here, artworks here, yada, yada, yada. Not that it's anyone's business, and not that I have to justify it, but you have to understand something about me, which long-term viewers will, is that I'm not frivolous with purchases. Purchases for me are usually lifelong investments, and everything that you see here, from the painting above to this sofa, is with me for life, is with me for life. So they're special things that I invest in and accumulate. Nobody would question, you know, spending 3-4 grand on some sort of sofa from, what are they called, DFS, one of the shops here in the kingdom, you know, high street brand sofa. Several £1,000s on that, which they might then discard after 12 years of use, or less, some people. Do you know what I mean? That's not my way. And similarly with things like the dresser in the background, I had that a few years. I probably picked that up for about 25 quid down at the junk shop. The painting above me here, I got at auction, I think for about £35. I think it was that one. So I try to spend on things that will be timeless, might appreciate over time, will be with me more or less forever, rather than spending on 20 different items from ASOS or Boohoo, you know, clothing that comes and goes in and out of season. Same with furnishings, as some people have every right to do, but that's not my way. The cherubs in the design of the tapestry have fortunately evaded going threadbare. The areas around their hair and their body are becoming quite raggedy, but they have survived so far. But the sofa seems to be literally holding itself together by a thread. And as the custodian of this sofa, I can't guarantee its survival intact. But at least, because it's going to be so expensive to repair it, out of my budget, my dear, entirely, but I can at least say that it will be seen by hundreds of thousands of pairs of eyes. That's the way that I justify it, one of them. And it'll be enjoyed by you, and it'll be loved by me while it is still alive, and while it's still sort of in one piece, while the cherubim frolic and play. For those of you that don't know, and I didn't know until I googled it, Aubusson is a centuries-old tradition. An image is brought to life by weaving using processes that are practiced in Aubusson and other localities in the Creuse region of France. The process is time-consuming and expensive, and Aubusson Tapestry is the gold standard throughout the world. It's been described as a human chain of unique know-how. And I've seen others for sale online. If you have a Google, you'll see plenty of them, and lots of them are in better condition than this one, so more expensive. But I will say, after being a bit concerned about the state of this one, compared to the other ones that I see online for sale that are in better condition, they lack the charm of this one. This one has the charm. This old raggedy one. It's very sensual in the flesh, this sofa, to behold. Very sensual, especially by candlelight. I mean, you can't make love on this particular one. A little bit of petting and a little kiss. A liaison dangereuse. You can have a little bit of necking, my dear, a little bit of pecking, and maybe a hand job. But you can't really make love on it. You could look at it. You could look at it from another vantage point while he's doing all the work, of course, and you're smoking a cigarette. Why not? By the way, I also wanted to say that I'm aware that the sound isn't great here and it echoes. I don't really care at this point in time. Most of you seem to be picking up what I'm saying and accepting it for what it is. But I will say, in the previous broadcast, I did put on my old lavalier that I used to keep at the side of me in the other setting, which is attached to my ancient iPhone that I used to record from. And simultaneously, as I was talking to you here in my computer webcam, so professional, but I enjoy doing it this way, actually. I simultaneously recorded my voice on this, and the idea was to splice them together so that you could have slightly better sound. Well, as it turned out, I put them both together, and one was longer than the other. So they began with my lips in sync with the sound, but as it wore on, my lips were moving and there was no sound, or it was a different part of the conversation. Do you understand? One seemed to run a few seconds longer than the other. How annoying. This is the kind of technical thing that drives me absolutely crazy, and I get all kinds of technical suggestions, this, that and the other, which I appreciate sometimes, but I have tried a lot of those things and I just like to be simple and I just want to talk and broadcast, but I'm still getting used to the surroundings. Some of you have suggested getting one of those wireless Rode lavalier. One gentleman in particular offered to help fund the paying for it. As I say, many of you are so kind. I have considered those kind of things before. One thing I will never consider is the Rode cordless mic, because it's got Rode in great big white lettering all over it, R-O-D-E. Have you seen those poor YouTubers who have to do Rode's advertising for them? Not on your Nelly, my dear. And then as you move about, the clothes rustle and they pick up all kinds of other sounds. So what I'm saying is, over the months, I will work on making some subtle improvements, but you'll have to put up with it. It's not going to be a quick fix, and I enjoy it being makeshift anyway. Okay, that's enough chatter for the moment as we get on with some royal business. Yesterday was Holocaust Memorial Day. That's, of course, why Catherine and William were out doing what they were doing. But 27th of January 2025 marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the largest Nazi concentration camp, Auschwitz-Birkenau, and the King spent the day attending commemorative events in Poland. He's actually apparently the first British head of state to visit Auschwitz, and he described his time in Poland as sombre and sacred. His Majesty visited Krakow's Jewish Community Centre, which was itself inspired by a meeting 23 years ago between the Prince of Wales, as Charles was at that time, and Holocaust survivors. His Majesty's involvement helped lead to the official opening in 2008, and the King met volunteers as they prepared donations, providing essential supplies to refugees. This stunning image of the King was captured at a commemoration held in front of the Gate of Death, and His Majesty visited Auschwitz I, where he viewed a collection of personal items that had been confiscated from victims upon arrival at the camp, and laid a wreath at the death wall where so many were executed. And as for the Queen, well, she is patron of the Anne Frank Trust, and she attended a reception to mark the day. She was robed in royal blue, and Her Majesty met with survivors and supporters of the charity. After watching a presentation given by youngsters from partner schools who are delivering educational programmes across the kingdom, Queen Camilla graced the ballroom, joining 600 guests for a candle-lighting ceremony. Very touching, very moving, and the Jewish community and all the Jewish fruit basketeers are held particularly in our thoughts and affection at this time. The Queen also joined celebrations at Prospect Hospice for 45 years of good work and care. Since 1980, Camilla has been president of the hospice since 2013 and took the time to meet staff, patients, volunteers and families. The Queen also opened the Evans Education Centre and cut a cake to mark the milestone. And in Swindon, Her Majesty opened a new emergency department and toured the state-of-the-art facilities on offer. Our golden trophy, Sophie, visited Dogs for Autism, where she learned about the positive impact of these assistant dogs. The charity's dogs support people with autism by providing comfort, reducing anxiety and improving their quality of life. Here are Buddy, Jack and Finn, who demonstrated their training, and Her Royal Highness met the newest team member, Louis, the 9-week-old Cavalier King Charles. Whenever I see that breed and that word, Cavalier, I hear it as Cavalier, which is wrong. Although I suppose you could say that's similar to the French version. But it will always be Cavalier to me because of a South African friend of mine. Well, actually, it was an Irish family, the McCormicks. I'm still friendly with them. From Clonmel, County Tipperary, originally, but they lived in South Africa, and they had a wonderful Cavalier King Charles called Paddy. It was one of the first dogs I ever fell in love with. Little Paddy was gorgeous, gorgeous. But Cavalier King Charles is the way that the little girl, my friend, used to pronounce it. Cavalier King Charles. For some reason. I don't expect anybody else in South Africa does, but that's how she pronounced it. Cavalier King Charles. And so Cavalier always becomes Cavalier in my mind. Strange, isn't it? I have to really think about it. Cavalier King Charles. Anyway, I digress. As for the Duke of Edinburgh, Edward was hunky as Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Dragoon Guards, visiting troops deployed to Estonia and attending a training exercise. The cold weather operator course takes place every year, and soldiers spend 2 nights in a forest, building camps, making fires and finding food and water. Sounds like the Cub Scouts, doesn't it, my dear? And then there was the Cub Scout promise. And there are all kinds of promises these days, my dear, not just the promise to the Christian God and the King, but for those of no faith and different faiths. Very modern, but all mention duty to the King, I'm glad to see. But yes, there are amendments to the promise for Buddhist, Christian, those of no faith and atheist, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, Muslim and Sikh. I'm sure they're missing out some kind of faith there, my dear, though. So they might get cancelled. But the Christian version, I promise that I will do my best to do my duty to God and to the King, to help other people and to keep the Cub Scout law. Yes, the Cub Scout law. Cub Scouts always do their best, think of others before themselves and do a good turn every day. So let's make that our ambition, shall we, my dear? I'm going to go out and think of a good turn that I can do for somebody, and perhaps you can do the same. Won't that be wonderful if we can inspire each other to improve our character? Thank you most sincerely for joining me. I appreciate your company, and I'll see you next time. Bye.